Okay, welcome to the Crow Discovery Project. I wanted to make a quick clip here, partially because it's 20 degrees when I woke up this morning. Clearly can't get a telescope out in that weather, or if you can, I'm not sure how the heck to do it. But I came across this website that had co-opted the lunar wave, and while that's nothing new, people began to send me the link having bought into the BS that is being pushed, and I've just kind of had it up to my eyeballs with the misinformation and the mind screw of backing NASA's missions to the moon. So anyways, here it is. Okay, so let's get started. This is the site State of Reality that we're going to talk about today because they are a supposed group of remote viewers. And for those of you not familiar, you can look it up. I think back in the 80s I read books that talked about these guys before I realized what was being published to the so-called conspiracy community, basically hogwash. And while I'm not stating that all remote viewing is hogwash, I am stating that the kind of people who sell classes to teach it and sell books about it and relate themselves to the Army project about remote viewing is just complete malarkey. It's straight out of a Jim Marrs book. It is what it is. But when you look at this site, the first thing you see by this gentleman, Brett Stewart, who has co-opted my lunar wave work, the work that Randy did in Houston, the work that was done in New Jersey by Richard 205 Maria, which took many thousands of hours combined. None of us are referenced, by the way. What he's doing here is furthering the NASA lie that we went to the moon, which you can tell by his header image here. He's showing you excerpt image from the Apollo missions. So any person who's going to display this stuff and then reference Apollo as if it was real is spouting malarkey. They're propagating lies. And to claim that they have remote viewed the source of the lunar wave is not only laughable, this is an insult to anyone who is a thinking individual. Anyone who is a thinking individual who has applied the logic required knows without doubt that the NASA missions to the moon were fraud, and that everything NASA has handed us has basically been one psyop after another to make the people on this world believe what they want us to believe about space, planets, moons, and all these other things that they have made up descriptions for. But as we get into this, what's really kind of disturbing is he opens up with this Richard Hoagland material, which has, I mean, I don't think you can go much lower. Richard Hoagland is the go-to guy if you want to talk about 7-foot towers on the moons and cubes and castles and all these ancient alien relics that were left behind that the Apollo missions knew about but lied about. And what this kind of disinformation is designed to do is to get you to buy into the basic tenet that Apollo went to the moon, that NASA has left and gone to space, which is a lie. And it's a demonstrable lie. So that's how this website opens. And you can go through it. You can see the web address at the top. Now here you can see he's ripped off my lunar wave footage that took me, I don't even know how many thousands of hours. And then a year and a half after I filmed this 2012 footage, it took me a year and a half of filming to confirm that in fact it could be filmed again. But what you see here is he calls me a civilian astronomer, gives nobody reference names of who has shot this. Randy, Richard 205 Maria, our friend in Germany, all the people who have shot this, including myself. There's no reference, so there is no way for someone who sees this site to know where this came from or to go look into it further with the source material. As we go down here, what we find is that he's pushing the remote viewing. And what's laughable about this is I don't know how many, basically years, have been put into researching the lunar wave by those of us that put in all those endless hours at night trying to film it and succeeding at filming it a number of times. I think 9 people have filmed it 12 to 16 times, something like that now. I've kind of lost track. My point being, these supposed remote viewers, I guess, spent a couple hours doing what they call remote viewing, and they don't even get the basic things we know about the lunar wave right. As an example, well, I'll talk about this ridiculous wave diagram he's made, but he points out that the wave has been filmed most often at the solstices, which is a flat out erroneous statement. It has been filmed the most often at equinoxes. It has never been filmed at any solstice. The closest one we have was, I think, 30, I don't know, roughly 30 days after the summer solstice, but we filmed nothing in the wintertime close to the winter solstice. So anyone reading this who would be interested to know more has already been told erroneous data, which is very simple to get right. He's drawn these diagrams about what the wave looks like, and it's all laughable because what he is saying here, here's some kind of an image they've got that shows the artist's rendering of the ancient, dilapidated, abandoned technology which is supposedly driving the lunar wave. And he goes through what they've done. He's also lifted the footage from Mr. Brennan. I think he's lifted the footage from Richard 205 Maria. He's turned them into animated GIFs so video tracking doesn't catch him, I would imagine. But then he has the balls to say here what the lunar wave is, having spent his, I don't know, day or a few hours in a day doing this supposed remote viewing. Well, I can tell you flat out that those of us that have spent the endless hours, we don't know a lot about the lunar wave. And we have spent endless hours filming it, just going through the footage pixel by pixel. What we know about the lunar wave is that it's most likely to be filmed near an equinox. What we know about the lunar wave is it is probably some sort of a facade. Now, the ancillary research that we've done to this, to some of us, demonstrates that the moon is not as far away as we've been told. It's not a rock in space, and that nobody could set a boot on it if they wanted to. But to communicate that to people who have not done the level of research that those of us who have taken a serious interest in this have is nearly impossible. And the reason it's impossible partly is because of websites like this. I went and did a lookup on this guy, and I found out who Brett Stewart is, and he's pushing his remote viewing classes and other things. But I noticed he went into a chat room at a remote viewing group, and all the people there were giving him hell because he'd associated himself with some major, I forget, Ed somebody, I've forgotten the name, but I remembered the name from the books I read back in the 80s, and this whole thing is laughable. And the only reason I'm taking the time to make a video here is because common sense should dictate to anybody when you see this NASA imagery, this kind of Richard Hoagland mind mess that gets you to buy into the NASA premise that somebody went to the moon and could go to the moon. It's criminal is what it is. I mean, from the little black cube icon up at the top of the site to other areas of the site that have CIA backgrounds, this is a crying shame what he's done here. And the fact that he's taken the footage and given credit to nobody who did the extensive work is just unexcusable in my view. Anyhow, I don't usually do clips like this, but this one goes beyond the pale. So there it is. Cheers.